My name is Hugh from H Engineering, and this is the second video of converting a roundhouse Linder into a Blanche. So in the first video we've gone over the tools needed and parts of the kit, and we just started building the model. And in this video now we'll be going over building the rest of the kit, particularly the tender. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. So this is the first part of the body, tender kit. It's all cooled down a bit now. You can see a layer of, you can quite see that. You can just about see a little bit of solder going through that side, so it's just alright. Nice fillet all the way along. So yeah, it's quite neat. Don't need much solder, because once it's in the joint, it's in the joint. So the next step will be to start fitting the sides. So obviously we have the rivet on the outside, and that's going to fit on there, just like that. So the way I've done this previously is I've found some, I've got a drawer underneath here full of bits and pieces of offcuts. So I'm going to go rummaging around and find a piece of material that thick. I can't remember this off the top of my head. 9.5mm. So we'll find something. And we're going to rest this down flat on here, because this is a relatively flat, it's not flat all the stuff, but a flat piece of block. We're going to pop that on the side there, and then we're going to solder the joint in the back there. Once that's in place, we'll work on doing around the seat, and then flip it round and do the other side. Right, so I've got these blocks of 3/8 bar. They were part of something else I was trying to make a couple of years ago. It's not ideal being steel because it will act as a heat sink. But with plenty of heat, we should be fine. So, right, this is the first side we'll be working on. So that pops in there. Turn this round that way so you can see what we're doing. Right, yeah. So we're going to try and get these bits of steel away from the brass that we're soldering. So along the front, I like using bits of steel as stops, because it just holds everything a bit sort of where they need to be. So all of these will go there. Just like that. So again, we'll put a little bit of flux down first. And I always find it easy with this sort of stuff. Very similar to welding. So you'll put one tack in first to hold it in place. If I turn it, yeah, you can see it there. So if that's all held squarely in place. So we'll put a tack sort of at this end here, and then another one in the middle somewhere, and that's going to hold it. Good enough for now, I reckon. So again, plenty of heat. Until you see it, the flux just starts to change. Let it change a little bit and melt. There you go. And then give that a quick brush off. And we'll put a little bit of a tack in place. Now you see that pulled out. So again, if we that shouldn't go anywhere now. There you go. There's a very small tack there. I'm going to put a bit more heat into it, especially that top bit. Alright, there you go, see? So it pulled off there. because that's what happens to thin brass. There we go. There you go. That's much better. More heat in there now. So a decent lump of solder in there. And check to make sure it's all still lined up. We'll put another good lump in there for now. Now, probably can't see from there, but particularly that second one, it looks atrocious. But all it's doing at this point is holding it all together. Right then. So the next step, turn it on its end. That's all. Perfect. So now we've got that together. The next part would be to solder these front edges here. So sometimes, no, it's not going to be quite big enough. So the easiest way of doing that in this case would be plop that on the board and then put a decent weight on the top. So that's all nice and square. So first thing I'm going to do, put a bit of flux down here. These act as quite a strengthening part, which is why I've done it one piece, because it's easier to fold them and have them all in one piece rather than having to attach them after. So we'll introduce a bit more heat. Should do. And put a bit of solder. There you go. So as you're seeing now, this bit is raised because putting a load of heat into there and soldering it has buckled it ever so slightly, but that's fine because we can work with that after. So now we're going to do the same on the other side. There we go. No, sorry, I'm going to do the front. So same again. Plenty of solder in there, keeps it nice and strong. Doesn't matter about too much at the moment, particularly on these ones, because it's on the outside, so I can always file and polish all that off after, as long as it goes into the joint, which it has, because we can see it on the, can't quite see it there, you see it on the, right on the inside. Right then, so we'll now do the same on the other side. So I forgot to video that. All I did was hold the piece of steel against the back there and put some pressure against it and just warm that ever so slightly to the solder. As soon as it sort of solder melted, it shoved it all back in place, and that's all now nice and flush at that end. So because I've introduced more heat into it, it has buckled it ever so slightly at the back here. So what we're going to do is put a little bit of pressure against it there. It's already quite a lot. There's already a fair amount of heat in there, so I don't need much. Then just, I've essentially just tinned both of those materials. So there we go. So yeah, that's dried now. There you go. So let's grab that, and it's all nice and flush on the front. So I'll do Same again, put a bit of weight on the top to hold it down, on a bit more weight actually. That's about it. And we'll do some soldering along the end here. There we go. There we go. And that's the, not quite as tidy as that side, but it's fine, we can deal with that after. So that's all now in place. Yeah, there you go, that's all. That's in place. It has warped slightly because of the heat, but that doesn't matter because we can reinforce that after. So the next step now, just turn it around the other way, is to fit the back of the tender. Now I always leave this bit until last, mainly because to get the right coupling height, it has got the you can just about see there the drop. So, and that simply just pops in place between the two sides. Not that sort of drop. So going back to the bits and pieces that I keep handy is the little aluminium angle and the peg. They're handy for just popping in place like that. Lift that bit up to there. And there we go. So that goes on there. So what I normally do with the back, because the side can warp ever so slightly, is I'll tack it both sides on sorry, top and bottom on one side, then I'll realign it on the other side and do the same on the other side. So we'll put this one in place first. Now we've done that side. We can flip it over to this side, and yeah, there's a little bit of sort of misalignment there. A little bit. So what I do tend to find is once you've put a bit of start working on something, it gets easier and easier to solder because it you know, it builds up the heat. So it comes out the way. There we go. So that's our current stage. So we've got the back in place, front's all soldered up, and we've got the seats in there. So the next step now is to add plenty of strength into the tender. What I normally do is I run the solder all the way around the inside, and that just gives it plenty of strength. Not that these need to be particularly strong, but it generally does help. Right then, so we'll set that up and we'll get on to soldering. But yeah, there you go. So that's the majority of the body of the tender assembled. And it's getting quite warm now, so now it sits there with the arse of the tender over the back there because of that little lip. So we've built the main body now. The only remaining part to do now is fit the back of the cab. So the easiest way I found to do this is to fit it like so on the top, upside down because it sits on the back of the seats, and then just space it out. There you go, so it rests squarely on there. We'll use our little clamps again. So let's set that up now. So yep, that's level on there. Now, something I didn't show in the video is I have mentioned I've got various sorts of bits and pieces like this of weights to use as weights in the spaces. So I've got all those. I have got another one that I use. Ooh, these. So these were the axle boxes for a 7 1/4 loco, or Blanche's full, that somebody asked me to flame cut, and then I didn't want them, so I kept them. So these are really good for spacing things out. Fit on, there we go, on there. So what we should be able to do now is pop that on there and push them together, and it holds everything in place. So that's flat on there. Everything's lined up. So we'll pop a bit of flux on there. Just like that. So now that that's held in place and the solder is dried off, we can put these to one side. And there you go, that's the back of the cam in place. So the only place to solder now is the bottom there to give it a bit of strength. There you go. So there's I don't know if you can see it there, there's 3 tacks along the bottom, and that's more than enough to hold that in place. So let's get quite heavy now. So finally, just to give these a bit more strength, I'm going to put a couple of solder tacks on the back there. So again, plenty of solder flux. And sorry you can't see me doing this, but it's a bit not tricky to get at, but I won't be able to film it and so again, plug that in place and there you go, drop some solder into the gap, and there we go. So that's the majority of the structure put together, and at the moment now it's a very strong structure. So the final, or one of the final large parts of the body now is the flange that sits sort of in the bunker. The idea being that with the old unders, all the RC gear was in the tender. So you'd get the that's the part that you can build your coal load on top, or your oil tank, depending what condition you're doing it in. And that's the part it sits on, sort of in there. So that's the next part that gets soldered in, and we'll work on that now. I'm going to try and find that now. So it's landed somewhere in there. I should probably clean this machine out really, shouldn't I? So now that we've found the spaces I made, we'll get on to soldering these up. Put those in place back there. Way too much flux. Well, no such thing as too much, but it just gets messy. I didn't go on the outside with the blowtorch. So now that those two are in position, a bit warm. We'll do the same now along the back edge. So that is the basic structure, more or less complete. The only major bit to do now is to anneal and fit the roof. And obviously fit it to the tender. So we've now put all that together. I forgot to record, but I've also done up the inside edges here, just to give it a bit more of a fillet on the outside for strength, because we're going to be doing a lot of sanding around these areas to get rid of any solder marks at the ends. Same as the two back corners there. I've put a bit of a fillet in the inside so it gives it a bit of strength. So the next step will be to plonk it on its face and fit one of the roof ribs. So again, that just fits in between the two ends, like so. So because the point of these are quite small. I don't think I'll need to put any preheat into it. It's a piece, well, it's half a mil thick, and only what, 3 or 4 mil wide. So it's going to need very little heat. So I'll do this one first. So that's all in place. And yeah, so the next step now is we'll anneal the roof and get it to fit on there before trimming it, and yeah, we'll get it fitting. Right, so this has been ever so slightly softened. So we'll take it over to the rollers, put it through the rollers, and yeah, we'll form the roof. Right then, so I've given this a bit of a roll. Got it close-ish. So, well, as you can see there, it's all over the place. It is too long. The idea being that you've got a little bit of leeway side to side. So what I normally do is I fit it in place, clamp it all down, get it in place, solder it in, and then trim it down after. With a couple of mil of overlap on each side. So clamp it in the middle, so as you can see there. So clamp in the middle and then work my way outwards. It just helps to keep everything in line. Again, blocks like these will probably come in handy. Yeah. So if I put it on there. Now, in this instance, what I'm going to load up the soldering iron and do it this way. And as you can see, I'm probably just about to see it there. I'm way over one side, but it doesn't matter because I've got the excess material. Right then, so that's the middle's held, and the profile of the cab, it tapers down at the sides. So the next step now, I'll solder the front all the way up to the edge, or where it starts to, where it hits the sharper radius, and then I'll do the radiuses at the ends. So now, let's try and form those edges round. We're not far off. A little bit more. So, same again. I've set up my blocks. I'm going to get my iron right in that corner. Get a port solder and press it in there. There you go. So just grab that corner quite nicely. And now do the same for that side. So that's got the curves quite nicely there. There you go. That looks a bit better. Yeah, and there we go. On roof soldered on. So the next step now is to try and get into these corners and do the outside edges of the roof. So back to the blocks to do these. That's better. And there we go, that's the roof bits done. There you go. It's not the neatest, but we can tidy some of that up after. So this is the current state of the tender. We've done all the main joints around the body, attached to the roof. That's pretty much it for now. There's no more major components to go on, to be soldered on at least. So the next step for this body now is to be a good wash. You can drop them in like citric acid and that sort of solution, but realistically you can just use sort of hot water and a sink and a scrubbing brush. So I'm going to go and clean this up now. So I've just given this a bit of a wash in the sink, and get some of this water off now. We've got most of the flux off. There's probably still going to be some bits and pieces here and there, but yeah, we can work with that. So now we've given that a clean, I'll pop that down there. The next step would be to remove the underframe out of the Roundhouse model. So this is the Roundhouse Mark II tender. For the people really wanting to know, there are some slight differences in it. So obviously the coupling's different, and there's a mounting, the pivot pin for the drawbar is different. It's got a nice etch along here. That's pretty much it, I think, in differences to the original tenders. Right then, so we'll get this one off. And there we go, that's the chassis, and yeah, we don't need that anymore. Right then, so first off we'll see if it fits, because the original chassis didn't. Yeah. So what we need to do with these is take the rear coupling off, and then take a little bit off each corner. I don't know if you can see it there, right off the edges, these vertical bits at the ends there. All that does, it gives it a little bit more room to drop into the body like that. So they may cause an issue with the back of this, because I think he wants to keep the original couplings, so we might have to do something with that. So that's there. Right, we'll go to the belt sander and take a bit off the front of these. Anybody who really likes Roundhouse stuff, they're probably should look away now. And there we go, it fits in there just nicely now, with a little bit of wiggle room, not much, but just right. So the belt sander does leave a little bit of a burr on the ends there, so I'll just there we go, so that's all cleaned up. So where the pin is at the bottom there, that's obviously the front, and it just drops in like so. So we'll line up the so this one is for a good customer of mine. He's bought quite a number of my kits and everything previously, so my I'm going to throw in some extra bits for him. I'll design some wooden seats to go on here, as well as a wooden cab floor. And I'm going to have a look at the loco and see if I can do that the same on the loco. So it's going to have a matching wooden cab floor, which I think will be quite neat. But yeah, there we go. That's the basis of the tender on its chassis. A bit more work needs doing. So there's things like the beading. We still need to file and tidy up all the edges and get rid of all the solder, trim the roof down. Once we've done that and tidied all that up, there's the handrails on the side of the cab, so one each side. There's small handrails on the inside here to stop crews falling from the seat there, obviously in between the tender and the cab. And there's a small handrail that goes on the this back half of the tender here. So I think that's it for this video, and we'll carry on with more detail on the next one. Thank you.